Greetings and peace, everyone. I would like to start this with the Fatimiyya Sufi order greeting of Noor Alaikum. Tonight, I'm joined by my brother, friend, and comrade, Brother Stephan Beyer of the Noor FSO, who returns in these series of dialogues and conversations. And tonight, Brother Stephen would like to focus on Catch-22 and the concept of his challenges as a disabled person and dealing with disabilities currently in the United States. So, without further ado, welcome to Brother Stephan Beyer. Please take it away. The floor is yours.
Walaikum Noor. Greetings. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie or read the book Catch-22, but spoiler warning, it are great. The thing that it's about is if somebody has an issue where they're seeking help, the very act of seeking help proves they don't really need the help they're seeking because they're able to go to all of the trouble to seek help. So when you do the math on that, that means if you're crazy enough to know that you can't fight in combat during World War II, that means you must not be really crazy because you'd have to be. You see how the logic there works? Or the lack thereof. And I guess I have a different issue because my issue is less with supposed craziness as an actual neurological issue that seems to be based off a mutation, which is a tic-based disorder, similar to, but not precisely, what's commonly labeled as Tourette syndrome. So, Tourette syndrome has unwanted phonic and motor tics, which would be unwanted statements or movements of the body. Now, we found a treatment for this condition that works remarkably, shockingly, almost magically well. And it's a modification of a commonly available insured and backed treatment for something I don't really have. But so TMS, which is called transmagnetic stimulation or transcranium magnetic stimulation, is essentially using MRI lasers to zap somebody through their skull into their brain to get the brain in a certain area to maybe pay a little bit more attention to what it's doing for a while. This treatment actually works extremely well and extremely fast on tics, unwanted movements. So for what this treatment's actually insured for, it would take weeks of treatment to have a noticeable effect. Whereas within just 2 treatments, I haven't had any full phonic tics so far in this recording. So that's actually a huge thing. And I had treatments on Friday and Thursday. Now, unfortunately, I actually had to drive myself to and from getting zapped in the head both times. Now, you can imagine the insurance on that. But so the second treatment, because I wasn't able to arrange rides as well as I'd like, was sort of preset the timing of, and the person who normally zaps me in the brain, for whatever reason, she was running late So in order to get the time that was scheduled the day before with the person who was supposed to be there, I had to get a different person who, while qualified, she normally answers the phones. She only operates the brain zapping machinery occasionally. The person who normally does it's actually overqualified for what she's doing. I wouldn't say that the woman who ended up doing it was underqualified, but a little less in practice for what she's doing. And anyway, they ended up turning the machine on incorrectly. And so instead of zapping me where it felt like light taps on the top of my head, it felt kind of similar to the intensity of the air puffs where they're checking your eye pressure at the eye doctor, type of a rapid fire machine gun or sewing machine instead. So obviously, if I was doing research, which I am, of course, this totally destroys, because it introduces a variable into my research. Because I, can't really get there, schedule a driver the day of. I have to schedule in advance if I'm going to get a driver. And in order to do this, I'm kind of off. So this time I'm not getting the technician that I would normally prefer, who actually, what they do when they're treating me is pretty easy compared to what she's capable of. Instead, I get somebody who, while qualified, is out of practice and totally botches it. Uh, Twice. She managed to botch it twice before she got it right. Now, I did manage to drive myself home after this, but I mean, do you want to share the road with somebody who literally is guessing he's probably okay to drive? Are you there?
Yes, brother Stephen, I'm here. I'm just listening to you, brother, because this is information that people need to know, and I just want you to take your time and explain all of this on the
Hmm.
aspect of not only the Catch-22, but life in this country is difficult for disabled people. I mean, that's not enough accommodations, and
Now, let me explain.
please continue.
Um, Sorry, some of the difficulties there. So as I have unwanted phonic tics, things that normally other people could do are very complicated for me. Going shopping for food and waiting in line is a game of Russian roulette. Um, and at best, I'm imposing on somebody that I may need for support later, because you can imagine that the person who involuntarily makes disgusting and threatening statements every time he has to wait in line at a register isn't the most popular person that the cashiers want to see every day. Like, that doesn't make their job easier that I chose to shop there that one day. My few dollar purchase for my quick snack um, isn't going to save their business model if it's not working out. Um, so I guess some people are kind of condescending towards me when I go shopping, because with my current food situation and the situation for treatments, I'm actually sometimes trying to buy treats. So I don't know if you've heard of the song about rich men north of rich men north of Richmond and fudge rounds and stuff. It's a weird song because it actually, it claims that it's going after the elite, but then, attacks poor people for needing support. Um,
I've actually never
it's
heard of that. Thanks for telling me.
it, it's a- it it's more popular in right-wing circles, but it's made its rounds, and it's basically a song designed to pander to Republicans, but while posing as centrist and even potentially leftist. So
Got it.
it poses as progressive, but is anti-progressive, um, and is more problematic than helpful, I would say. But one of the things that's supposed to get people angry in an election year is people supposedly using food stamps to buy things that are fast and easy for them to eat, uh, and could be considered treats. Now, a person with disability who's on medication and treatments that limit his appetite but is supposed to be eating and conditioning himself to eat more in order to have those treatments. This type of, you shouldn't use your benefits to buy something that tastes good. You have to suffer if you're on welfare. You should be buying celery or something, as if I'm trying to lose weight, which I'm obviously not. If anybody looks at me, right now I'm going to be going into the doctor, and my big fear is I'm going to have to change things up because I didn't keep enough weight on me. It's happened before and set back my research significantly. We've found this amazing treatment, but the research at this point is shockingly haphazard for where we could be at this moment. So some of the challenges that I have in life and that make this a catch-22 is, I mean, I wouldn't need these treatments if life were easy. Um, Having Tourette's, where statements that are exactly the most offensive and inappropriate things to say come out of my mouth involuntarily. So I just want to give you an example of one of these right now, and how they could be so self-destructive. There was this one time I had a caregiver, much better than the one I have now, and she was a very nice lady. Unfortunately, she didn't work out for very long, and I only had a few sessions with her. But one time when I was talking to her, I noticed that she talked about Jesus very different than most people in America, in that she had what I would consider a very low Christology. She talked about Jesus almost as a mortal and not as a divine figure. Some sort of divine mission and holy purpose, but more like a man doing it than as a God man type Trinity avatar thing. Anyway, as sort of a non-Trinitarian type of Gnostic believer myself, I was interested and kind of wondered maybe this woman could be Muslim because they might view Jesus as a prophet and a Messiah, but less as a God man avatar. Like, I don't know exactly how to describe the Trinity conundrum of a contradiction sometimes.
I mean,
As
that would make sense because besides Christianity, the only faith that gives any belief or credence to Jesus Christ is Islam, where we believe in the Son of Mary, peace be upon him, Isa, and we believe in his second coming and miracles. But yeah, the only difference we have is the aspect of the divinity. So yeah, please continue. What did you end up discovering?
well, I mean, it turns out she was actually just a Christian with a low Christology, but my tick went off right when I thought maybe she's a Muslim. And the thing that I said was, um, I insulted one of the companions of the prophet. Now, it would be the type of thing, I'm not even going to say it, even with the dispute of inheritance that led to the Battle of the Camel. I just don't want to bring up divisive issues and even mention the person's name. I wasn't feeling hatred at this particular individual at this time. It just sort of came randomly as one of those divisive things you wouldn't want to say. Like, I wouldn't want to go into a room full of Muslims and start insulting companions of the Prophet and see what happens. It wouldn't be a diplomatic way to go about it. Be the exact opposite, probably, of how I would normally try to make a connection if I was trying to make a connection. Anyway, she was not a Muslim and had no idea who Uthman was and wasn't offended by somebody insulting him. But yeah, it was one of those moments where if it were different, you could imagine that leading to an argument or conflict in some ways. And so often when I get rides from someone or something that has happened, in some cases, some of the people don't even believe in Tourette's. So Uber drivers have the right to cancel a ride, and people can be very selective of how they complete a contract when they've got a contract. So the drivers I have from the insurance agency that doesn't cover the treatments but can cover some transportation costs can like leave me an hour ahead of my actual appointment. Now, if I've got tics that could contentionally people would find threatening, problematic, and um, fighting words, as in justifiable cause to take action, it might not be a good idea to be waiting in a shared court outside of where I get my appointments. And also, the landlord of the building doesn't really have an interest in a client of one of the customers insulting all of the others. So, if I'm making all of the neighbors of the place where I get treatment upset, that might cause problem for the business itself. Um, so right now, I mean, when I look at the mental health industry, I kind of feel that it was built off eugenics. And eugenics at its core has a component of white supremacy. But I also feel almost every institution in the United States obviously does. We're a colonialist nation, we're a police state nation. We partner to back those aspects in a lot of our institutions. That being said, as a disabled person, without the treatments, my life is pretty miserable. Hard for me to even walk if my legs are moving involuntarily. Um, it's hard for me to even use my credit card to buy a gallon of milk um, if I'm threatening the cashier. Um, and if I actually manage to do that, driving a car just a few blocks, runs a risk of, let's say, a taillight stops. Now I've invited somebody who could use deadly force to interact with me and then interpret this situation how he wants. Now, I know there was this situation on a New York subway where a loud, upset individual who was having some sort of troubles and emotional distress ended up getting choked out and died. And the person who choked him ended up getting like more money than he needs for his defense donated within a few days. And a local evil, rabble rousing right wing individual named Nick Fuentes, who had dinner with Donald Trump and Kanye West, actually made a statement that he wants more people to interpret loud, obnoxious people who are in public as immediate threats that need a deadly response. Um, Like he thinks that's a good enough thing that we need more Rittenhouse wannabes out there becoming celebrities by killing people who
And another key point to this is that the guy who did this act in the New York subway was a former Marine who most likely had his own rage that he wanted to inflict on this individual, and the person he choked out was a Michael Jackson impersonator, but he did that to make people happy. He was a black person who was having a mental health crisis, and instead of getting that person help, this white Marine veteran choked him out and killed him, and he should be charged with murder as far as I'm concerned. But that's the
I think
unfortunate
they charged
situation.
him with manslaughter instead, which
Well, that's the
seems
unfortunate
very
situation.
odd. I forget exactly what the charges were, but this is normally in Illinois. There's this concept that you're not supposed to have escalation of force, but it has a tendency to be, only come into practice when it's, an escalation of force is used against somebody who's wealthy and powerful versus somebody who's poor and potentially undesirable. Like it's fine to escalate force against somebody who's lower on the social. No, there's no witnesses and no way for there to be a legal witness for you in court anyway, basically within our system. But I've had a lot of people from differing communities who have been allies, but I've also had a lot of passive aggressive support that really are putting out more Catch-22 type situations where they'd only offer help I don't need, or it becomes such a complicated transaction that it becomes a homework assignment literacy test of a puzzle to actually get really basic assistant. Like one time I asked somebody if anybody in his group, he's reasonably prominent in his congregation, might be willing to, drive me sometimes. And if I could contact them asking for a ride. Um, this individual, I think, is embarrassed about my condition in part because people don't know how to respond to someone with Tourette's. It's a frustrating condition, I'm sure, to be around me when I'm having tics. It can't be easy. Um, but, rather than ask anyone in his congregation if they were available or mention that I've been looking for a caregiver for over a year at this point because my current caregiver, he's just as likely to give me a paper with his job duties and as an explanation why he can't do a simple task and then ask to go on break early than to actually help me many of the things that, while not technically part of his job, he doesn't have to not do them. Like my caregiver, for instance, can basically do any number of things to help me that are not required. He just has to be willing to do them. I feel like the guy that I have is, I don't know, not really on my side. He's more interested in me because he gets to spend time in his car because he's so useless to me. I'd rather have him wait outside um, because I can have tics being frustrated trying to ask for help. So it's almost harder for me to control the ticks with someone else around. It, they go off more often when I know I'm being watched or I know someone's listening. Um, so, I mean, he gets more time on his phone by himself. But there's things around here that I'm not great at doing myself with my condition. They're likely to cause tics that I'd like to get done at some point. I understand that I look super lazy to other people who don't understand what type of actions and things are likely to cause me to have mobility, motor control issues, and verbal control issues. But I've had such a dysfunctional situation lately for asking for help that I'm almost afraid to tell people what is most likely to cause tics, because every time I ask for help, this type of catch-22 situation where does he actually need help? Like the help often gets farther away from where it was when I asked. Like when I point out what I actually need, people seem to be like, well, can we get him to get it on his own? And it's like, I can drive myself to treatment. I just don't want to do it because I know it's Russian roulette. I don't want to walk with motor tics because when I have motor tics and I'm walking, I can fall very easily. Um, I mean, I can still walk. I just know that my risk of falling very suddenly and very badly is possible. My leg will, when it ticks, move out very suddenly, whether or not I, am able to catch myself or not. Um, so sometimes when I'm at risk with the ticks, I'll carry a walking stick. I obviously don't need it when I'm not ticking. It's helpful for me when I am, because if I have a motor tick and I have a walking stick, I'm not going to fall. Um, but I don't know. People resent that I use a walking stick. Um, I don't seem to need it all the time, so they don't think I should have it any of the time. After all, they don't, you know, sometimes it hurts when they walk and they still don't need a stick, um, or something. The reactions I get from this silly walking stick are silly in themselves, but that's a whole nother battle that I probably don't even want to discuss. Um, I recognize that I depend on, systems of white supremacy just to get by in life. I'm not trying to go to war with the aspects that are capable of being, charitable responders who are helping me get by in my basic daily life. If I pick a fight with every American who's dependent on the military industrial complex, I'm, you know, starting a dispute with the very people I need to bring up the milk at the corner store. And if I don't have that milk, I'm not going to be able to drive myself to treatment. And if I don't drive myself to treatment, then I definitely am not getting milk. And I'm definitely not driving myself to treatment. And then I need someone else to do it. And then I have to impose even more. So I get this cycle where I'm getting zapped by the wrong person in the wrong way in my brain because um everybody else has a family, everybody else has a job. I don't have either of those things, and I'm probably not going to get them without an actual caregiver who helps me, which I've been trying to get for over a year. And I've also been trying to get more than a couple people who supposedly, uh, claim to be my family, claim to be my friends, claim to be my support network. Um, I've tried to get them to actually point out, hey, he needs a caregiver, and his preferences are a caregiver that doesn't have any felonies in his background. Um, Other than that, it's great. The reason on the felony thing is because I have threatening statements and because I get the attention of law enforcement quite frequently, and because I live within the range of Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 7, which is by far the most destructive local aspect, I would say, of the police state colonialism and white supremacy. That group already, um, you know, their leader lost his job as a police officer for falsifying police reports. So literally, these guys can make fake news. Um, so that's a group that I think actually is really problematic that lives here. Instead, it seems that the focus of various people is on one group of faith or one group of fraternity in one-upmanship versus the other. Um, right now, I'm trying to expand my support network and not shrink it and burn bridges unnecessarily. The reason I need to expand my support network is I've imposed majorly on two groups of people already, um, hugely financially, in order to fund these treatments. And I'm wasting an enormous amount of these treatments due to inefficient research because um, I can't control enough variables to stay stable long enough to control variables and stay stable. So it ends up having more treatments need to get done to restabilize me because I couldn't get the assistance that I needed that would have been cheaper. You know, for the lack of a nail, a horseshoe was lost. For the lack of a horseshoe, the battle of the kingdom, etc. Um, the amount of money that probably gets spent by local police just responding to 911 calls involving my verbal tics probably is much higher than what it would cost to actually help me get the treatments without having to risk an Uber driver canceling the ride with me halfway there. Um, anyway, I'm actually doing pretty good. I'm pretty stable at the moment. My problem is I'm not really thriving. I'm not really contributing to any of the causes I care about. I'm in an incredibly stagnant position. Uh, and until I get a caregiver that actually, I don't know, the current guy I have, we'll put it this way. He has an out of state cache of guns held by a group of people who don't believe that any law other than the Constitution is really real. Now, if that sounds like a safe person to have as your caregiver, um, I mean, I don't even know how to explain why I don't think that's safe. That my caregiver claims that there's no law other than the Constitution, and he's got an out-of-state cache of guns, and a group of people who are just like me, but are ready to meet me when I'm ready to go all the way. So I don't know what you think
And
that
and and
sounds
and,
like.
and just to interject, my brother, I cannot understand what you're going through because I never been in that position. And I pray for you, my brother. I pray God has mercy on you and gives you peace and happiness and blessings. You deserve it. And I'm sorry that all of these things are happening to you. And I request everyone, whoever's in the Chicago, Illinois area, the greater Chicago area, if you don't mind, Brother Stephen, if I could put your email in the description, and whoever's listening in the vicinity of that area, if they could be of any aid or assistance, is that okay?
Yeah, that would. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm a. So one of my friends recently called me the walking travesty. Um, he meant it kind of as a joke. He was saying, "Why is it always a travesty with you?" And I kind of feel like I can understand why he thought that was funny. Um, as in very simple things. I mean, his disability is a broken back. His disability is very obvious, and he triumphs over his disability in ways that are hard to scientifically explain. And I can
Well,
understand why
from what
he
I
complains
see,
about my walking stick. It's not a big deal. When other people complain about my walking stick, I kind of am like, what on earth, guys?
brother, you're chosen by God, because those that are selected and chosen by God, they go through the worst trials and tribulations of this human life to get close to that divine source. And in Sufism, all of the walis of Allah, the friends of Allah, go through excessive trials and tribulations. The stories of Job in the Quran, they call him Ayub. So all of those tribulations you go through, it means you are chosen by God, and You just got to keep doing what you're doing with your time here on Earth, and you will be rewarded in this life and the next.
I hope so. I really feel that the greatest reward would be for this research to actually get used, not for profit, but to help people who are in situations similar to me not have to suffer like I did, to bring forth this treatment to actually be helpful. Um, so things that could change about the treatment is if transportation were more available from people who actually, understand the disability of the person that they're transporting. And two, if this treatment were covered by insurance, I wouldn't have to massively impose already on two institutions, which, if I wasn't already imposing for thousands of dollars, I'd be more comfortable asking for a ride from that congregation. It's just, I'm already the black sheep that's screwing up the ritual. Um, you know, Having to have a sacred moment when someone with Tourette shows up, it's not easy. You can imagine how a fraternity almost feels like, why did we let this guy in? Um, and when I was let in, I was more functional, but it was before this treatment was discovered. And I really do feel that the discovery of this treatment was through divine guidance. I was in prayer when I felt inspired to seek this out and seek this method out. And I was actually requesting that I get an opportunity for honorable martyrdom. I realized that my condition was getting worse, and um, that I was getting harder to represent myself good for the communities that were helping me, that I was a burden to my community, to my family, and to any brothers who would have me. And, that's when I suddenly felt the inspiration of, well, you haven't tried this and it could make a change. And why not use this technique in this way? And I found doctors who agreed with that, and we're on the cutting edge of some innovative treatments, and we put something together. And this is a new treatment on the premotor cortex. In some ways, it's not too much of a modification from other treatments for similar genetically linked conditions that also exist. I would say that the Tourette syndrome treatment on the premotor cortex is similar to commonly used treatments on the premotor cortex done for OCD. But it's a little bit different. We've got a customized coil and a customized treatment to make the most of this research. And the, this was like the first time this was really done for Tourette's. And we found out that, not only was it far more successful than the OCD treatment is for OCD, it's more successful than the depression treatment is for depression, which is the one that's insured. Um, but until research can be done in a way where variables are controlled and it's reproducible, nobody's getting funding, which means other disabled people are not getting this treatment. Um, and I really feel this is something that the divine absolute wants the vulnerable of humanity, not just in America, to have. This is something that lots of people with these conditions are easily exploited, vulnerable, easily trapped by methods and tactics of proxy war and sting operations, harassed and humiliated by abusive henchmen of various powers. And, there's a sick system going on that depends on people being in debt and people being desperate enough to turn in their neighbor. And
Yeah, I
it
mean,
would,
look at the system here in America, brother. People can't afford health care. They can't afford higher education. If even if they want to get housing, they cannot afford housing. This system is not designed to benefit the people. The Congress and Senate are not working for their constituents. They're working for their donors. They're passing laws and funding for people who don't deserve it rather than helping their own homeless people, medical needed people, the school districts, women, children, social programs, veterans. I mean, you name it. The system here does not serve the people. And how long can this continue? I know people who are working class people now in this inflation and economy, even multiple incomes in one home, and they're having a hard time surviving. So imagine what somebody like you is going through. People have no idea. So thanks for putting this out there.
um, I feel like there are people even less privileged than me and even more forgotten than I am. Um, it's sometimes I like to think about Imam Ali and his sons and the struggles they went through and how easy my situation is compared to some of these other situations of what people have gone through. And but even with how relatively easy it is, sometimes I think the absurdity and the ridiculousness is still there. Sometimes when I look at the challenges that some of the heroic, inspiring figures um, went through, it almost seems like it was an absurd difficulty where there was no right answer and they just had to choose a noble way to fail. Like one way or the another, they were going to lose. It was, how do I make my last stand? And sometimes I feel like I have that level of absurdity. Like twice with my walking stick during, the week before Easter, twice with my walking stick. I had encounters where the police forced me to the ground, and having the stick made it easier to surrender peacefully after people became alarmed by me having ticks in public, just trying to access various goods and services. So when I don't get the support that I could get, that's the kind of situation that happened. I kind of feel like that only happened because a lot of people were on vacations. There were less availability. One, there was some shakeup where I get my treatments. There was a woman who was Islamic, and she chose to. She wasn't working during Ramadan, which I mean, it made things more difficult on some of the other people and made less availability for the treatments that I use. And other people were less available because of Lent. Some people were doing spring break, and other people had eclipse plan trips where they were going somewhere else to view the eclipse for some reason. And just the multiple different increased vacations and change to support network meant that I was imposing more and more on people and basically begging more and more for from institutions for what I was already entitled to. I remember explaining at the YMCA at one point why I wanted to get a shirt at one point that said, "Why do I have to beg for what I'm already entitled to?"
Yes. And that's the thing, brother. We need help here. We need social programs. We need medical programs for people who cannot see the doctor. They need caregivers. They need help with transportation, with day to day house stuff like going to the store, putting out the trash, cleaning the house, just day to day life. I mean, caregiving services are so essential, not only for senior citizens in America, but people like yourself and other people in your position. These are the kind of things we need to be funding. These are the kind of things we need to pay more attention to. The sick, the elderly, the crippled, the disabled, the ones who cannot do anything for themselves. That's what it says in the Quran. Allah says in the Quran, why are you not helping each other? That's what this human life is about. What good did you do for yourself and others? That's why you are living the life of a saint who is going through his trials and tribulations. But at the end, no matter what happens, you will not lose your faith in God. That's what this whole thing is about.
Um, I very much have a testimony in the Quran and the family of Muhammad
Yes.
and of Fatima. And I also want to speak about Mary and her son Jesus, and Miriam, the sister of Moses, and all of the divine female companions of the prophets.
Please,
Um,
please, brother, do so. The floor is yours. I'm just going to sit back and listen to you.
I want to say that when one fully understands the gift of prophecy to humanity, and that it actually leads to political action to create um, action for workers, for the vulnerable, and ultimately we should be creating a finalization of Marx and communism with a understanding of not as religion, but one can have faith with that political and economic understanding that when people realize and think about Jesus, they will see him most fully complete in a when understand through Islam and the immunization of the eschaton in communism. That it absolutely makes more sense to believe that there is a divine force guiding history that is leading to these final stages and the polarization and the trials and the chaos we see and the nonsense and the political antics of the American and NATO systems while they allow the tragedies in Ukraine and Gaza to continue. Um, I feel it's important to know that God has given us the choice to say no to a system that is destroying the earth and neglecting people with serious needs and exploiting people for temporary economic benefit that causes permanent, lasting harm. Um, so I think it's very important and was very beneficial to me that I found the FSO, that I started to understand the guiding forces of progress in history that culminated in the prophet and the imams and has led to workers' revolutions and will continue to lead to the freedom of women and workers and the disabled around the world. And with that, I will have to close for the evening.
Thank you, brother, for your time and giving this knowledge and information out there. And for anyone listening, I'll put Brother Stephan Beyer's information in the description below for anyone in the Chicago area or greater Chicago area that could be of any aid or assistance to him. So please give me your email, Brother Stephan, and I'll put all your details in the description. And thanks for your time. Nor Alaikum.
Thank you.